So Lauren and I met at Eli Wild and AJ Mirzad training event in Southern California. And now Lauren is crushing it with her programs that she offers women entrepreneur. So without further ado, Lauren Peters.
Sure. So I have been a coach, executive coach, a coach for entrepreneurs for the last 6 years full time. Prior to that, I was in the corporate world working with Fortune 500 companies in design and strategy. And I did have a little stint as an executive at a tech company, running a development company, a development team and a design team as well. And I always keep coming back to coaching because that's where my love is. And these days, I'm working with female entrepreneurs and helping them learn how to plan their perfect week. So I combine a lot of coaching around productivity, planning for business, planning for life, and then I also incorporate a feminine energy aspect to it too. So a lot of women that come to me are very rigid in their patterns and also exhausted at the same time. And so we really want to fix the exhaustion part and create a lot more spaciousness in their life.
The perfect week. When you put that on your Facebook, I was like, wow, this is so cool. I wonder what that looks like. Is there anything that you could share more about with regards to that?
Sure. So the perfect day, I actually haven't seen that system, but one of the girls that I was talking to in my market research last year, she's like, I do use the perfect day system. But what I came to find with all the women I'd been working with in the last 6 years is that they don't really think on a day to day. They think more on a week to week.
Hmm.
And the week to week is what affects them the most mentally, emotionally, and physically because they end their week having looked at what they did or didn't do. And a lot of times they go into the weekend, dragging their work into the weekend, that never ending to do list.
Mhm.
And so when I started realizing these women were coming to me and the thing they were saying was, can you help me organize my life? And I'm a coach, I just, whatever problem you have that you bring to the container that we have together, we'll work on it. We'll work through it. But there was this theme of, can you help me organize my life? And at first, it didn't occur to me, why that would be a problem because that's something I've just never really had an issue with. In my whole life, I've been planning my weeks with a lot of spaciousness, with a lot of self care, and getting my work done at the same time. And I'm like, I don't really understand why all these women are asking me to organize their life. Like, isn't that easy? And then I realized no, it wasn't easy for them. What came very easy for me is something that I was just coaching these women through. And then finally last year, I'm like, okay, we need to do a group program around this. It needs to get out of the one to one coaching container, and these women need to learn from each other at the same time.
Brilliant, brilliant. So what's your motivation in that? Why did you, I mean, you told me you left your corporate jobs. You've evolved into this amazing coach that's helping women to, you know, open up and help them with their life. What inspired you? Like when was that moment that got you from that corporate person to who you are today?
Well, I tell my parents this. I was telling my girlfriend this yesterday. My parents, my mom, she's always wondering, when I'm going to quote unquote make it in my business, which as you know, as an entrepreneur, like I don't really know if that's my outcome, but that's the way that she views it. And sometimes my dad is just like, I don't really know what you do, but I just want you to be happy. But I let my parents know, I go, where I'm at today and how I'm doing this entrepreneurial thing, it's your fault. You know that, right? And they're like, what? I go, well, they put me in Montessori school when I was in preschool age. And then if you go and Google Montessori school, the curriculum is all about independence and creativity and lateral thinking and collaboration and really allowing your child to go and choose the way that they want to learn.
I love it.
So, yeah, having gone through public education, college education, I even opted out of pre pharmacy because it was too regimented. I went to design school because in design school, I could choose how, when, and where I wanted to do anything and everything. That's the one reason why I chose design school was like, this is what I'm built for. I need to be able to do what I want when I want. And so I've taken this way of working and creating my own version of how I want to live my life and my schedule and still get a lot of things done at the same time. And every time I placed myself into a system that was very rigid, so for instance, the corporate world, I was in agencies and design firms, which are inherently creative, right? You get new projects all the time, but it's still quite regimented. I had to show up at 9 a.m. I got to leave at 5. Sometimes I ate my lunch at my desk. There were deadlines of client projects that I didn't always choose. And while that is the perfect life for a lot of people, it just wasn't for me. So there was that. And then I went into the tech company where I was an executive. And that was a lot more fun. It was a very startup-y environment, even though it wasn't a startup. Um, and I still got to do what I wanted to do and when, but I was still having to come in at 9 a.m. and leave at like 7 p.m. And my job there was to track people, track their performance, make sure that things were getting done. And so planning the perfect week at that time was very important for me. I also got to see how to plan a week that had a company lose money. We did a lot of that in that company, unfortunately. Um, and now, like, the aha moment is every time I place myself inside of a system that I see as rigid, I remind myself it is really important for me to live a life where I get to choose what I want to do and when. And, even when I have kids, I work with women with kids. This is still possible even when women have kids. And so it definitely changes when kids come into the picture. It definitely changes when, a relative gets sick. Real life still happens, but there is still this version of life where, like, the aha moment is I'm seeing all of these women who have placed themselves in rigid structures and just assumed that that's the way that life has to be. And they come to me completely exhausted. And then the aha moment is I want to help these women.
And so, where can people learn more about your programs?
It is a group environment. We have up to 18 women in each class, and it is 5 weeks long, done live. We've got a week's worth of classes and teaching material. And we also have a workbook for the ladies who like to journal, there's that version of learning. And then for the final 4 weeks of the program, we go in and we plan. We use the system, the very flexible system that is built for any woman, any personality type with any kind of schedule that needs to change at any time. It's a very flexible framework. And then we go in and each week we plan together what her weeks need to be, to where by the end of the 5 weeks, she knows how to use that system no matter how her schedule needs to change. And then another thing I love to teach in the program is here's the system you can use, and then here's how to break the system when it no longer works. Because one of the most important things about being a woman, having a certain type of attention span, and having a lot of information that she needs to track in her world, she needs to have flexibility. If she puts in a specific system in her life, she needs to know that she can break it and evolve it whenever it needs to evolve. So we teach that in the program as well. Um,
Mhm.
a book I would recommend for any woman and even man considering how do I calm down during the week? How do I lower my stress? Depending on where you are in the personal development journey, a book that I always love to recommend. It's a book by Michael Singer, and it's called The Untethered Soul. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah,
No.
read that one. And then after that, read his next book, The Surrender Experiment. And then if you want more information along the lines of planning and productivity and the feminine embodiment work that I do, if any of your listeners want that,
Mhm.
you can go to my website at www.yourperfectweek.com. They can find me on Facebook at Lauren Nicole Peters, and then also Instagram, lauren.nicole.peters. And I do free master classes once a month.
Oh, very
So
cool.
last month,
Is there a set time and
Yep,
everything?
I do. Well, not a set time. I'll wake up on a Saturday morning and be like, "Oh, I know what this month's masterclass is going to be about," because it really depends on the themes that a lot of my clients are going through. Last month, we did a 3-day long free event where I talked about getting into your joy as a female entrepreneur. Getting into your joy is such an
Wow.
important thing to do when you're waking up in the morning. If you feel like crap, how do you get into joy and authentic joy, not like I love my life, like a fake type of joy, you know? Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Is that a private group that you have where you do those events, or is it something you just go live on Facebook? It's your
It's a
private group?
private group. Yeah, you can go on my Facebook, or if you get on my newsletter from my website,
Okay,
I always mention how to get into my private group.
very cool, very cool. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here. There's, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh man, I mean, if you're a woman who loves to achieve, you've got all these achievements lined up from your background, and maybe you think you haven't done enough, you've got to do more. Maybe you're exhausted, maybe you don't really see through the forest and how you can actually start to relax around your schedule. If you're thinking like, who else is going to do all this work? How is this going to get done? If you can't even imagine yourself living the type of life where you have spaciousness in your week, you get to breathe, you know exactly what you need to get done and what you don't need to get done, because that's important too. Um, Having time at the end of the day to be more present with your family or your friends or your self care, then just know that every woman that comes to me, I mean, I have women in my program starting on Monday. One of them called me yesterday. I was not expecting this. She video called me, which I wasn't even ready. I was like in a robe eating dark chocolate. Like that's what I do in the middle of my Thursdays, you know?
Living the dream.
she she calls me on video. I know her personally, so I answer. I answer with the video facing up like to the ceiling, and she goes, "Are you naked?" I'm like, "A little bit. Why?" And she's like, "I'm freaking out right now. I am having so much anxiety. I don't even know how I'm going to be able to like do this or that." She goes, "I'm still totally doing the program. Don't worry about that." She goes, "I just don't I had to take a week off of work. I have to calm down." Like her and every woman that's ever come to me, I show the exact step-by-step process to completely flip all of that around and create a life of spaciousness, one that like feels good without stress. We work on all the layers of who you are and how you actually want to work, your psyche, your past, what your deep desires are, and we figure out how to create that kind of life. So that's what I would leave your lady listeners with. Like it's possible, even if it doesn't look like it's possible yet.
There's hope, and I love that. That's so awesome. So you, it sounds like you talked her out, talked her back to being happy.
I did, and I'm like, hey, you be as anxious as you need to be. We're starting on Monday. If you want to make the live calls, fine. If you realize you can't make a live call, don't make it. We have replays specifically for that reason, right? I said, do yourself a favor, get a massage on Monday morning. If you show up to the call, at least you will have done that amount of work for you. If you're taking a week off of work, get a freaking massage. And she's like, oh my God, that's such a good idea. Okay, thank you.
Brilliant idea.
I just needed to know that this could be a program and a container where I can completely feel like I can unravel and be myself. And I go, 100%. Welcome to the program.
I love it. Very cool. Well, Lauren, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate your time in doing this. Happy to feature you here on the podcast, the Pro Spotlight podcast. Um, we will definitely stay in touch. You're a beautiful soul, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be a part of the Pro Spotlight family.